Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee. Welcome to another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I hope everyone has had a happy holiday season. Much like a lot of people, I'm back home for the next couple of weeks due to a break before I got to go head back to work and head back to Iowa. So I thought, hey, since I'm home, let's get into the home studio and let's see if I can't hash out a couple of brand new Gateway to Soccer Show episodes for you all. For those of you who've watched the last couple that I did from Fayette, Iowa, again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't, encourage you to go and check those out. Had a great interview with Sam Fink, catching up with him and what he has been doing. And also, again, kind of recapped my time at the MLS Next Derby when I got to come home for a weekend between St. Louis City SC and St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Some great insight there as well from under 17 coach for SLSG, Ian Henry. Go check those out, definitely. Again, in terms of just, kind of getting back into the swing of things, obviously the home studio, it's a little bit, empty. I had to go scrounge into my closet, see what jerseys I still had left here. But again, all the other materials back in my room there in Fayette. Of course, had to wear my brand new Upper Iowa hoodie. Job's been going great. Of course, I'm broadcasting all 10 sports that we do for online webcasts and for local TV. Of course, love doing men's and women's soccer back in the fall, but fall sports has long since been over. Right now in the middle of winter sports, got to do my first men's and women's basketball games. Basketball's always been a sport that I've enjoyed a lot, but never had the chance to broadcast, so that was a lot of fun. And I did my first wrestling meet, sport I'd never gotten to do before, didn't know much about, but I had a lot of fun. It was a great experience, and looking forward to doing more once I go back here in a couple of weeks. But still, like I said, I'm here now, and thought it was a great opportunity considering it is the end of 2021. It is New Year's Eve here today, so it's a great opportunity to look back on this past year, talk a little bit about some of the major stories that happened in men's and women's soccer. That's how this episode is going to be broken down. We're going to do the top 10 stories for women, then the top 10 stories for men. I'm probably going to forget or not mention a few things because it's obviously so much happened this year in soccer that it'd be impossible to really break down in just to, an under an hour show. So again, these are the stories that kind of came to my mind first that I thought were really important, some of which I've discussed here on the show before and wanted to get back to here again at the end of the year. Then we'll wrap things up. Had a great opportunity to talk to Connor Sparrow, Tomas Gomez, and John Berner, 3 SLSG goalkeeping alum who are back home here over the holidays, putting on a winter goalkeeping camp for SLSG. Figured since they were all together, great opportunity to catch up with all 3, see how they are doing, talk a little bit about them with their past season. Also, of course, some of the things going on here in St. Louis. So that's how we'll wrap up the show, my conversation with those 3 goalkeepers. So again, very excited. Glad to be back in the home studio. So let's get into some of the major stories in soccer that went down in 2021. Okay, so like I said, want to start off with women's soccer here first. And I definitely think that in 2021, unfortunately, some of the stories that came out in women's soccer, the negative sometimes outweighed the positive. But I still think there were a lot of great individual and team performances here in 2021, a lot of great championship performances, a lot of interesting trends that I hope to get to here in these 10 stories. So here we go, top 10 stories from women's soccer in 2021. Starting at number 10, the trend of U.S. women's national team players making the trek back from Europe to the NWSL. We saw, just a couple seasons ago, just all of these, big time U.S. women's national team players making the jump to Europe, most of them going to the FA Women's Super League in terms of some of the English teams over there to try things out, see how things go over there in that competition. But we definitely saw here over this past year, those stars begin to return. Talking about Sam Mewis, talking about Rose Lavelle, talking about Alex Morgan, talking about Christine Press, just to name a few. And I don't think that in terms of just, that type of a trend, it's not necessarily a negative thing, right? I just think that this kind of shows, the growth of the NWSL, that it's one of the top leagues in the world when it comes to women's soccer, and the opportunity for those players to come home and be a part of a really competitive league. We also saw some of the top internationals not from the U.S. make the trek to the NWSL over this past season. So again, it's a growing league, not just in popularity, but in terms of competition. And to see those players come back home and play in it is a very exciting thing. So again, don't think it's a knock on what they did over there in Europe. I think it's just an exciting thing to see all of these stars make it back home to the U.S. and the NWSL. Okay, coming in at number 9, I have Olivia Moultrie signing her first professional contract with Portland Thorns. This was a big deal in 2021. Moultrie, she had been training with Portland. She had been competing in kind of like, academy fixtures or just, preseason exhibitions, things like that. But she hadn't been able to sign a professional contract with the club due to the rules in the collective bargaining agreement with the NWSL. Well, she took them to court. She challenged that cause, and she was granted some type, I don't want to say a restraining order, but granted some type of, assistance to where she could sign a professional contract. She signed a 3-year deal with Portland, even scored a goal at one point here in 2021, and of course became the youngest NWSL player ever at 15 years old because of that clause in the collective bargaining agreement. This is a huge deal because obviously in MLS, the rules are different, right? In terms of just the age limits for players, there's not really anything there. But for the NWSL, this was an important first step to kind of, legitimizing the league and making it a little bit better when it comes to these younger players coming up through the system. Moultrie, she's a different case, right? I mean, in terms of just, taking a different path in terms of what she'd already been doing with these, academy fixtures and practicing with the first team, she was ready to go. So I'm glad to see that this was kind of, there was a solution that was presented. She was able to sign this professional contract, and hopefully now she paves the way for other players of a young age to get to start up their professional careers early. So again, congratulations to her on starting her professional career and hopefully, laying the groundwork for future players down the road. Up next at number 8, I have some of the updates that Angel City FC and San Diego Wave FC have presented here in 2021. Both those clubs unveiled their colors and their crests, both of which I think look really good. They've, of course, made some updates to the front office in terms of people who will be heading up things, pegging head coaches, and of course now have begun to make their first few roster moves ahead of their inaugural season in 2022. I think the introduction of an LA and a San Diego team into the NWSL is huge. We're going to see, I think, a bunch of players, flock to those California teams, a little bit, kind of like what we've seen now with the LA Galaxy in terms of what they've been able to do, the star power they've been able to acquire over the years. I think we're going to see a similar type of thing with Angel City FC, and maybe to a little lesser of an extent with San Diego. But of course, having someone like Jill Ellis there to kind of lead things, in the front office is a huge deal. So adding these two clubs, I think, to the NWSL, which has already been showing the growth in terms of just, popularity and competition, these two teams are only going to enhance that. So again, very excited to see next year what Angel City FC and San Diego Wave FC can bring to the table, but already getting very excited because of some of the announcements they've had in 2021. Coming in at number 7, I have the U.S. Women's National Team's ongoing battle with the Federation when it comes to equal pay in court. I have this one a little bit, towards the back because we're still waiting, right? We're still waiting for that big shoe to drop in terms of just this lawsuits that they have versus the Federation. We did get some news over the course of 2021 on some of the other smaller battles that the U.S. Women's National Team had with the Federation in terms of some of the unfair discrepancies in terms of, benefits and some of the other things that the women's team deals with that the men's team doesn't. So in terms of that, there's been some progress, but still the women's national team didn't win everything. There were some battles lost. They're still trying to fight through this major battle over equal pay in court. And it's going to be a big, news story into 2022 in terms of just, resolving this issue, bringing it more towards the forefront in terms of just, we've seen it kind of fade to the shadows just a little bit here in 2021. I think it's going to ramp back up and we're going to see a major decision come down. And the results of that decision, are going to reverberate throughout the entirety of U.S. soccer. What will this mean for the women's national team, for women's soccer in general in this country? Who knows? Hopefully there's a positive solution. Hopefully the U.S. women's national team continues this fight, continue to showcase, what's going on whenever they get the chance to play. And hopefully, again, like I said, a positive solution comes about. All right, up next at number 6, even though the U.S. women's national team did not win the gold medal at the Olympics this year, I still think this is a big deal that Canada were the ones who won the gold medal. It was their first in their country's history in women's soccer, and they did it by beating Sweden in penalty kicks. They played a great tournament, and honestly, you could argue that maybe besides Sweden, Canada were the team that really took it to the U.S. over the course of 2021. It started with that really tough, close loss in the She Believes Cup. But of course, things began to steamroll. The U.S., of course, didn't get off to that great start at the Olympics. Canada were the ones that eventually took advantage, beating the U.S. there in the semifinals to book their ticket to the final, and they were able to overcome Sweden there in the gold medal game. Christine Sinclair and some of the other great players there over at Canada thoroughly deserve this for their work in 2021. Still a big story in terms of who came out on top at the Olympics in women's soccer. It's a huge deal, and Canada being the ones to do it, I got to tip your hat to them on what was a great 2021. All right, moving right along to number 5, and what honestly was one of the most shocking results of 2021. And of course, talking about the UEFA Champions League women's final between Barcelona and Chelsea. 4 first-half goals from Barcelona absolutely stunned Chelsea as the Spanish club were able to cruise to a 4-0 victory there in the final. Again, Chelsea, had all these great players on great form. Of course, they had Emma Hayes leading the way, top manager there in Europe, but they were just absolutely, beaten from the jump by this Barcelona team. Just a tremendous team effort. Of course, they've got so many of those great players who have played great here in 2021. They were able to put it all together and just absolutely floored Chelsea in that final. Just amazing display, a variety of ways they scored those goals, and it just completely took it to a team a lot of people expected to win that final. So again, hats off to Barcelona on completing it, being a lot more competent, a lot more dominating than the men's team has been in 2021. But yeah, the women's team for Barcelona definitely were the best team of 2021 in terms of world women's soccer at the club level, and they really showed it there in that Champions League final. Up next at number 4, got to talk about Carly Lloyd retiring, the longtime U.S. women's national team player, hanging her boots from international and from professional soccer as a whole, with over 120 international goals, and I believe she's actually the second most capped player in women's international soccer history. Just a tremendous, not just long, but impactful career that she had. You go to all those goals that she scored at the World Cup, that she's scored at other tournaments for the U.S. women's national team, what she's done in the NWSL, just a tremendous and impactful career that she had. And of course, she gets the send-off series there with the national team this year. But again, just a tremendous impact on the game. Hats off to her and what career she was able to build. And again, we're going to be remembering a lot about what she did, especially for the U.S. women's national team, for a very long time. Up next at number 3, we got to talk about the NWSL in the 2021 season, where 2 major titles were won by 2 different clubs, starting off with the second rendition of the Challenge Cup. That, of course, went to Portland Thorns FC, who outlasted New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC in a penalty kick shootout. Think about the Thorns, that loaded team that they have, Becky Sauerbrunn, Crystal Dunn, some of the other players in that squad, able to get that done and win the second edition of the Challenge Cup. Then, of course, you fast forward all the way to the end of the NWSL season. Playing for that championship title was the Washington Spirit and the Chicago Red Stars. The Spirit living up to their name, making a comeback and winning that match in extra time by a score of 2-1. Of course, you think about all the stuff they have had to deal with off the field this season, the way they were able to come together, got a couple of great dynamic scores. And of course, Trinity Rodman had a fantastic rookie season, able to contribute there in the final as well. Just hats off to them. They really went on that run, got hot, and eventually were able to complete things there in the final. So again, I thought it was a great NWSL season. The Challenge Cup looks like it's here to stay, and it's a great way to get things started. I hope they keep it at the beginning of those seasons. And of course, as you make your way through, the NWSL now is so deep, anything can happen. If a team gets hot, there's almost no stopping them. And that's what the Washington Spirit were able to do. So hats off again to Portland and to Washington for coming up with those big title wins this year in the NWSL in 2021. Up next at number 2, got to talk about the U.S. women's national team at the Olympics. It started with that shocking 3-0 loss versus Sweden, where we knew something just wasn't right. The U.S. were able to make their way out of the group stage, kind of stumbled there almost in that win over the Netherlands. And of course, then they lose to their rivals 1-0 versus Canada, falling short of that gold medal dream. They end up in the 3rd place game versus Australia, where they were able to win and complete that victory for the bronze medal. Again, just things didn't look right from the beginning, and it was definitely a wake-up call for the U.S. women's national team, for head coach Vlatko Andrijanovski. Just some of these players, unfortunately, have reached the end of their careers. Of course, we already talked about Carly Lloyd retiring. She probably won't be the last in terms of either players retiring or players just not getting picked anymore for the national team. It's definitely a transitional period at this point, but of course, we've got so much talent that I know that they are going to bounce back, but still, it was pretty shocking not scoring in 3 of the 7 matches at the Olympics, a team known for, of course, beating up on their opponents with all of the great offensive talent that we had. Not being able to score was quite shocking to me. So again, in terms of 2021, it was a bit of a miss for the U.S. women's national team. This was their big tournament. They failed to reach their goal in terms of, going back-to-back World Cup and Olympic gold medal. Obviously, down the road, they'll have another opportunity to do so, I'm sure. But this was definitely a big miss here for the national team. So again, a little bit of a wake-up call. Hopefully, going forward into the next World Cup, this team will be firing on all cylinders. But unfortunately, coming in at number 1, like I talked about, sometimes this year the negative outweighed the positive, and that was certainly the case in the NWSL. My number 1 story for women's soccer in 2021 has to be the controversy surrounding the NWSL, and again, concerning all of the coaches and front office personnel who were accused of, sometimes even been found guilty of, sexual harassment, harassment of players, just really cruel and vile behavior to those players. And again, we had a lot of brave women come out and expose these allegations, and it led to a lot of people having to leave. Paul Riley, NC Courage, one of the biggest situations there. You have the ongoing situation with the Washington Spirit trying to get their owner to sell the club because of allegations. We had several different coaches resign, suddenly, like again, Racing Louisville FC for starters, and just a slew of other different teams that had to do something this year. Of course, the biggest resignation has to be Lisa Baird, the commissioner of the NWSL, who had come in, was doing a really good job in helping to continue grow the league. But because of these allegations across several different clubs, her knowledge potentially of some of these incidents, she had to resign as well. Huge mess, hugely disappointing for a league, like I said, that is continuing to grow. But again, just a lot happening in 2021 where you would hope we've moved past this, right? We've moved past this in women's athletics, but we haven't, unfortunately. So this was a ugly uncovering of some things that were going down in the NWSL, but a necessary evil, hopefully to purge it of these just horrible practices, to get the right people involved and continue to move this league forward. So again, very thankful, and I commend these women who were able to come forward to share their stories and hopefully push the needle on this issue to where it needs to be. Again, should not be tolerated, not just in women's sports, but in all sports in general. A lot of what they had been doing, and I'm glad to see that hopefully there's been an effort being made in order to get things right here in the NWSL. Because there's a lot of great soccer here in 2021, right? A lot of great things happening in the league. So hopefully we can move past this, we can get better, and next year in 2022, it can all be about the action on the pitch. So again, this was tough to watch from afar. This all obviously broke down once I had left the show and moved on to my job, but just every week it seemed like it was a brand new story, a brand new allegation, and just unfortunate things that you had to see from some of the most prominent people in the industry being guilty of these things. So again, hoping things get better. That's really what it comes down to. Continue to believe in women, continue to support the league, support these women. And like I said, hopefully in 2022, things will be a lot better. So fortunately, ending on a sour note there, but again, plenty of action on the pitch, plenty of positive developments, especially like Olivia Moultrie, some of the other developments with some of the other teams going on in women's soccer. Highlight what went down here in 2021. All right, moving right along to the top 10 news stories in men's soccer in 2021. And look, you could go in so many different directions with this, right? There's just so much that went down. I've got a lot of international soccer in here. I got some American soccer stories because obviously this is from an American perspective, but really you could do a top 10 for like each individual league or something, right? That's just how much that has been going on. But again, it's all very subjective. I probably forgot about something, or maybe there's a story that you felt was more important. Love to get in on that conversation with you, but at least just from my perspective and what popped into my head, these are the top 10 stories. So I want to start things off here at number 10 with some of the superstars that retired from the sport in 2021. Starting off with Arjen Robben, again, Dutch legend, Bayern Munich legend, just was a fantastic player to watch growing up and see what he could do with just that, magical left foot of his, officially retired in 2021. Wayne Rooney, last, doing the player coach thing, I think, at Derby County, officially retiring from playing soccer. Again, fantastic career, obviously, with mostly Manchester United, with the English national team as well. Then you have the sad situation with Sergio Aguero, right? Had recently made that move to Barcelona, but because of a heart condition, I believe, unable to continue with his playing career. Again, just some of the stuff that he was able to do along the way. Atletico Madrid, Manchester City, just a fantastic player, of course, also with Argentina as well. You also had Sami Khedira, German international midfielder, so had a tremendous, career for club and for country. Then, of course, we had a few MLS stars, right? Chris Wondolowski finally hanging things up with the San Jose Earthquakes. We had Federico Higuain also retiring from soccer. And then last but certainly not least, Matt Besler from Sporting KC, also retiring in 2021. So a lot of names there that no longer will be playing soccer. But again, a lot of great careers, a lot of great moments from those guys. And obviously, I'm sure most of them are going to be sticking around the game in some capacity. Up next at number 9, obviously COVID still dominated the news cycle in 2021. You could do, honestly, a few stories here in this top 10 on the subject, but I think nothing highlighted the craziness of COVID this year than during a World Cup qualifier between Brazil and Argentina. Already a huge, rivalry game was interrupted by the Brazilian government trying to deport a handful of those Argentina players because they had not properly quarantined before the match. Just crazy scenes there on the pitch with all these government officials trying to come on, some of them grabbing, certain players, huge melee between, personnel, coaches, players, etc. Just a wild and crazy scene that we never really seen before because obviously this is an entirely different situation with the pandemic. And I think it just went to show again, when you go country by country, how the pandemic was being handled, there was never really, kind of any cohesion, that nobody was really working together. Of course, in a rivalry situation in a World Cup qualifier, foul play cannot be outruled, honestly. And again, it was really on the Argentina players. They hadn't properly quarantined, but just the Brazil government trying to come in, stop the match, deport these players, just an absolutely wild scene that I won't forget. And again, if you didn't get the chance to see it, go look it up. Just an intense, 15, 20 minutes or so, just absolute pandemonium. And again, I think it really did an excellent job, in a bad way, unfortunately, of describing the craziness of the COVID pandemic here in 2021. Coming in at number 8, got to go with NYCFC winning their first ever MLS Cup in Portland, no less, versus the Timbers in a penalty kick shootout. Again, goalkeeper Sean Johnson, and again, a cast of so many great players, of course, including Castellanos, the Golden Boot winner, getting things done there in hostile territory to win their first ever MLS Cup. I tweeted it out at the time, kind of half joking, but think about it. This is a club that brought in David Villa, Frank Lampard, Andrea Pirlo, and so many other, former international great players, and they couldn't get it done in MLS. But this was the group that they were able to do it. Again, kind of reinvented what the club was all about, found the right people, found the right coach, and eventually were able to get things done. Again, really, they had been one of the better offensive teams throughout the entirety of the season. Once they got in the playoffs, they kind of started locking things down on defense as well, and they were able to get this done. So again, always kind of cool to see a brand new club win their first trophy. So hats off to NYCFC for getting things done here in this 2021 MLS season. Up next at number 7, guy who I thought maybe should have won Ballon d'Or this year, Robert Lewandowski, breaking a 49-year-old German Bundesliga record previously held by Gerd Müller. That, of course, was the single-season goal-scoring record in the league. Lewandowski broke it with his 41st goal of the season at the time on match day 34 for Bayern Munich. Again, Lewandowski, he has scored so many goals in his career, whether it be for Poland, for Bayern Munich, wherever he has been. But this, of course, adding this type of an accomplishment so late into his career just goes to show how great he has been. The top number 9, striker in the world, one of the top goal scorers in the world. Again, getting the chance to break this record and continuing to add to his legacy was quite impressive. So again, Lewandowski, I think, again, arguably got snubbed for the Ballon d'Or in terms of what he was able to do this season for Bayern Munich. But again, of course, it's no knock on him. He's had a tremendous career. He's going to keep on scoring goals, that's for sure. But again, being able to break this record that stood for nearly, half of a century, just a tremendous accomplishment for him. Coming in at number 6, I got to talk about my boys. Chelsea winning the Champions League. And I got to do it because it looks like right now in 2022, I'm not going to be able to really talk about them that much, unfortunately. But of course, again, we got to talk about what they were able to accomplish. Again, I know it's not popular, but firing a manager mid-season, the club legend there in Frank Lampard, going to Thomas Tuchel, who of course had his fair share of slip-ups, not getting the job done with PSG in the Champions League final. He was able to take charge of this team, completely change the defense, and make it into just one of the best in all of Europe and all of football in general. Of course, you had great, individual play down the stretch, highlighted by N'Golo Kante being player of the match there in both legs of the semifinal versus Real Madrid, and in the Champions League final versus Manchester City. Chelsea beat their English rivals there 1-0 behind a goal from Kai Havertz. And yeah, again, like I talked about at the time, I know it's very easy to bash Chelsea, right? Especially because of ownership, because of who they are, because of the way they spend money. But there were a lot of great stories within that Chelsea team. Edouard Mendy, going from basically unemployed to being the top goalkeeper in the Champions League. Of course, we know about N'Golo Kante. A lot of the youth players stepped up for Chelsea during that time as well, something they had not been able to do over the past few years, embrace that youth movement. And they were able to get it done against one of the top teams there in Manchester City, who were looking to finally break through with Pep in this tournament, and they were unable to do so. So again, Chelsea doing what they had done previously to win that first Champions League trophy, finding a way to get it done this past year and winning the whole thing. At number 5, I have Italy winning the delayed Euro 2020. An impressive start to the tournament in terms of the group stage, them going undefeated and absolutely laying waste to their opponents. Had some slip-ups there in the knockout stage, but found ways to win. of, penalty kick shootout or just, finding ways to grind out goals. Of course, then they get to that final in Wembley Stadium versus England. It's all set up, again, for the home team to really come away with that big European Championship win. But Italy were able to hang on to get to that penalty kick shootout. Of course, Gianluigi Donnarumma earns that top, goalkeeper, that top young player trophy that he was able to win at the Euros with those big saves. Italy in a penalty kick shootout, they're almost, you can't bet against that. And they're able to get things done. And kind of, again, the exclamation point on the turnaround that was Italy, not being able to qualify for that last World Cup. They reinvent themselves. Roberto Mancini comes in, does a great job of, adding some offensive flair to an Italian side, known obviously for their defense, but they really open things up. So much, fun talent there. Immobile, Chiesa, Insigne, who now, of course, will be plying his trade in MLS if the rumors are told true. So, again, it was a fun team to watch. They eventually get things done, and they win the top international tournament this year in 2021. Up next at number 4, and I am so thankful that we could talk about this in a positive light because of the actions of a few brave individuals, people who were able to do their job on that day. I'm talking about, of course, the incident with Christian Eriksen in Denmark's first game at the Euros. He collapses over there on the far sideline. Heart momentarily stops, but because of the actions of his captain and a few of his other teammates, medical personnel able to get on the field, were able to revive him before taking him off the pitch to a local hospital. And eventually, of course, they were able to stabilize him there. In terms of what he's been doing right now, it sounds like he wants to get back to playing soccer. He's unable to do so, though, in Italy because of a rule in terms of just his health condition and what happened to him. I don't think he's going to be able to play there, but it sounds like he wants to continue his playing career, which would just be amazing to see him come back. But at the end of the day, just very happy that he is still with us, of course, because of the actions of the medical professionals there, because of his teammates. Everybody remained calm, did their job, and were able to keep him, of course, with us. So it was a very scary incident at the beginning of this tournament, but thankfully, all's well that ends well. Denmark were still able to have a pretty successful Euros on top of that. But at the end of the day, just happy that Christian Eriksen's still alive and still with us. Up next at number 3, got to talk about Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo switching clubs, both of them in the same calendar year here in 2021. Lionel Messi always seemed like he was going to be a lifer at Barcelona because of the success that he had had, but because of just the ongoing financial situation and his rift between him and the club, the changing of presidents, the changing of managers, so much going on, and Messi finally said, I've had enough, chose to leave the club and join PSG. He's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start there, especially within, the League One season for France, but of course helping them out there in the Champions League. But still, never would have thought I would have seen Lionel Messi leave Barcelona, and it happened. Not just Messi leaving Barcelona, but Cristiano Ronaldo once again leaving the club, but even more surprising, choosing to go back to the Premier League and choosing to go back to Manchester United. It seemed like, again, he was the White Knight coming home to restore United to their proper glory. That has since not really happened. He has scored a lot of clutch goals for them in, of course, the Champions League and some of the other league matches that they've had. But in terms of just what's going on at United, it's not something one man can stop, obviously. But still, not just one of them, both of them moving to different clubs here in 2021. Quite the statement, just kind of a sign of the times right now in terms of just, player power, player empowerment, in terms of being able to move from club to club, where it is at here in 2021 in the game of soccer. So again, huge story here in 2021. Messi and Ronaldo still doing their thing, still scoring goals, but just on different clubs. Coming in at number 2, and I got to say, this nearly was the number 1 story, at least for me, here in this top 10, but I put it at number 2, and that has to be the controversy surrounding the attempted implementation of a UEFA Super League. Of course, you know the story. All the top clubs there in Europe, across all the big leagues, tried to get together and put together this league as a substitute for the Champions League, essentially, putting away all of their league matches versus those lower level sides. They just wanted to play against the biggest teams there in Europe, make a lot of dough, and not really care about the meaning of that league and the meaning of the soccer being played. Of course, there was a big uprising. FIFA, UEFA, several of the other top clubs, and of course, all those lower level clubs throughout Europe, and of course, fans really around the world voiced their outrage at the idea of just these elites trying to buy the sport of soccer to set up this league. There was so much public backlash that eventually, a few of those Premier League clubs, Manchester City and Chelsea, were the first ones to opt out of the league. One by one, these teams started to fall to eventually where it was just those final 3. I believe, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juventus, I think. But again, the league disbanded essentially, and the idea had been put to bed, but it's still a possibility, right? The entirety of the league is not dead. Those three clubs, I think, are still fighting things out, maybe in court or maybe with UEFA. I'm not sure. But for the moment, the game as is has been saved. Again, we've talked a little bit about just in terms of the negativity that a Super League would bring, in terms of just how it would destroy the game of soccer that we have not come to know and love. Was just a really, really bad idea. It's funny because it's kind of an Americanized type of concept, what we've seen here with MLS and some of the other sports in terms of just, setting up a league to where you can't get relegated. All you can do is make money, and all you would want them to do would be to play those big games. Thankfully, it did not come to pass. Hopefully, it won't come to pass. But still, it was a huge, huge controversy, dominated not just soccer news, but sports news around the world for those few weeks that it was in existence. But thankfully, it is gone for right now, but the Super League definitely dominated the news cycle there in 2021. But like I said, this is from an American perspective. So to me, the number one news story in men's soccer in 2021 has to be the U.S. men's national team's clean sweep of Mexico. It started off in the inaugural CONCACAF Nations League final between those two sides. And of course, that was won by the Christian Pulisic penalty there in extra time, a 3-2 victory. That was just the beginning, really, of what was going to be a fantastic year for the U.S. men's national team in 2021. Of course, there were a few speed bumps along the way versus some of those other different teams, but of course, they were able to find themselves in the final of the Gold Cup. Once again, facing off against Mexico. This time, they won 1-0 thanks to a header by Miles Robinson. But they couldn't stop there. Again, like I said, clean sweep. The third match was a World Cup qualifier there at home in Cincinnati. And how did they win that one? 2-0. Perfectly caps off what was just a historic year for the U.S. men's national team over the rivals. 2-0 victory. Christian Pulisic, of course, lifts up his jersey there to show that man in the mirror t-shirt with that jab after those words from Ochoa. Just absolutely picture perfect. It just kind of shows where we are at right now as a soccer nation, that Mexico no longer are the gold standard here in CONCACAF. That now belongs officially to the U.S. after these three victories. They get it done in two finals. They pick up those two trophies as well, and we're able to really build some much-needed momentum heading into these World Cup qualifiers. Going into 2022, the U.S. obviously know that they can beat any one of these teams and just continue to have to find a way to pick up those points on the road, win those home games, the age-old formula, and they will find themselves at the World Cup here in 2022. But in terms of 2021, this was the return of a lot of goodwill, highlighted by those three victories over the rivals in Mexico. That, my friends, I believe, was the biggest news story in men's soccer in 2021. So there you have it, my opinions, or at least my thoughts on the top 10 news stories in men's and women's soccer there in 2021. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, hey, did you do one for St. Louis soccer? And of course, I could easily fill up a top 10 for St. Louis soccer here in 2021, but I'm going to leave that again to the experts. Like I've been talking about, there's been so many great local, podcasts and shows covering the beautiful game here in STL. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be thinking about that and kind of recapping the year here in St. Louis soccer. I'll throw out a few of my favorites. Obviously, got to talk about St. Louis City SC, the foundation of the academy, bringing in all those players, seeing that come to fruition, and seeing their success there in MLS Next. That's got to be huge. And of course, bringing in guys like John Hackworth, Andreas Schumacher, some of the other local coaches, of course, my good friend Luis Swisher as well, being a part of that staff. Really cool to see. And of course, we're going to get some huge announcements coming up here in 2022. Got to talk about SLU men's and women's soccer and the runs that they had to the NCAA tournament, the domination that they had in the regular season, the postseason, during the A10 tournaments as well. Just a lot of goodwill and good to see them back being among the nationally elite teams, and just some tremendous runs there by both teams. Of course, this past summer, had the opportunity to watch some local soccer. Of course, you had St. Louis Scott Gallagher competing in the USL League 2, doing great things there. Great women's soccer with the St. Louis Lions and Fire and Ice as well. It was awesome to get to go out there, cover those games, talk to coaches, and again, just continue to embrace what St. Louis has to offer right now with soccer. And I know that's going to be plenty of my schedule next year into 2022. But again, those were just some of my favorite moments from this past year as well. So again, I'm sure there'll be other places that cover it much more depth. But once again, as we normally do, St. Louis had a great year of soccer. But can't have this show without talking a little bit about it. And of course, like I said, I was able to catch up with three goalkeeping alumni from St. Louis Scott Gallagher who were in town putting on a goalkeeping clinic. over there in Fenton at the St. Louis Athletic Center. Again, talked to Connor Sparrow, goalkeeper for the Miami FC. Talked to Tomas Gomez, who was recently a goalkeeper with Sacramento Republic FC, and John Berner, recently a goalkeeper there with Memphis 901 FC. Talked to them about their past season, the next step kind of in their career, what they're looking forward to next year in 2022, and a little bit about, again, what it means to be an alumni of St. Louis Scott Gallagher and the goal of theirs in putting on this clinic. So here's my conversation with them. Hope you enjoy. All right, I'm excited to be here today, joined by 3 SLSG goalkeeping alumni who just got done wrapping up their winter camp for kids around here in the St. Louis area. So I'll be talking today with John Berner, Connor Sparrow, and Tomas Gomez. John, we'll start with you. In terms of this past season, you were with Memphis 901 FC. You were part of, helping them get to the playoffs. Again, I know, of course, you had a tough injury that you had to deal with in the middle of the season, but still being a part of that team, seeing the growth, because it had been a couple of tough seasons before this one, getting them into the playoffs. How did you feel about this past season?
Yeah, I felt it was first off, it was a really hard off season after the 2020 and STLFC, folding, and then you kind of throw COVID into the mix. There was just a lot of moving pieces and a lot of uncertainty. So to land with Memphis, I was really, really excited. I thought I came in and really established myself as the number one and had some really good games early on. And unfortunately, look, injuries happen, and that happened, and I'm going to be better off for it. But to answer your question, I think for how new the team was, a brand new locker room, a bunch of new guys, a brand new head coach, I think the season could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone really good or really bad, and I think credit to everyone in the locker room and being a part of that, I think, was really special. Creating a culture, creating a really special year, making it their first year in playoffs.
So give everybody, listening here, your fans, an update on the recovery process, how you're feeling, and the optimism going into next year. Because again, what you've been able to build off, of course, you had those couple appearances with St. Louis FC a few years as well, where you looked really good. Memphis, same thing as well. So you have to feel a little optimistic about when you get back to full health, you can continue to move on in your career.
Yeah, and that's fully the plan. I think, unfortunately, I've dealt with these things before, and I've proven to myself that I can come back from them, and nothing changes. Look, it's just a little speed bump in the road, and I fully intend to come back and even stronger than where I'm at right now.
All right, Connor, in terms of this past season, you were with Miami FC. Again, you were able to help lead them to a playoff berth. Tough loss there in the first round with Louisville. I know, again, you kind of were part of a really good goalkeeping group there with Miami. And again, there's still a relatively new project, them being in the USL Championship, but you lead them to playoffs. Talk to me about this last season.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty good year. We just had, in my opinion, we just had a great group of guys, a lot of seasoned professionals that were in the locker room. We all came together and were able to get Miami over the line for their first playoff appearance. So it was really exciting for me to get back into playing regular games. This past season, I was very fortunate to be in a situation to do that. And, working last year with Brian Sylvester every day was a blessing, because he's also a very experienced professional and just a good person to train with. He's always pushing to be his best, which pushes me to be my best. And he's just a fantastic individual on just the human side of things. So just overall, just a very good year working with everyone in the locker room, and thankfully we're returning a lot of players, so I think we should be able to hopefully imitate kind of what we did last year and hopefully take it a step or two further.
So, of course, going into this season, you guys will have a new coach, and it's a name, familiar to people around from this area, Coach Anthony Poulos. Have you talked to him already? What's been the vibe that you've gotten, your expectations going into next year with him at the helm?
Yeah, I had a phone conversation with him a couple weeks back, and he was just kind of giving me the lowdown with how this next year was going to progress. It seems that he's really serious with the signings he's been bringing in. He's made a couple very big names. I think we took about half of John's current locker room with all the Memphis signings. But we're excited to have those guys on board. And everything I've heard about guys who had worked with Anthony in the past, especially the guys who were here in St. Louis with him, have only said very positive things. So I do know Anthony. Like, I've met him a few times. I've never gotten to work with him on the field, so I'm very excited to do so.
Tomas, in terms of this past season with Sacramento, again, you got a lot of playing time this past year. You were able to help them out. You were in a very tough division with how the USL Championship was set up this past season. So talk to me a little bit about going through that, the type of season that you were able to have, and your thoughts on the end of last year.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of buzz around Sacramento going into the season, and right before preseason, unfortunately, we got the news that the MLS had pulled out. And when that happened, you could kind of see a shift in the mentality within the organization. But as far as the team, like Sacramento's, historically had a very, very good team, and we started off the season hot and just couldn't get it to click. And it's probably been one of the most frustrating seasons because we had a very close locker room. A lot of guys enjoyed each other. It's just for whatever reason we couldn't get to work on the field. And for me, personally, I was able to put together 19 games in a row, and then unfortunately got injured in the game that took me out and kind of ended my season prematurely. But as far as the team, we really underachieved. But fortunately for those guys that returned back in Sacramento, hopefully they can do a little bit of digging into the problem last year and see if they can build, obviously, to have a better season this upcoming season.
So in terms of moving into next year, I know you might have an opportunity to maybe take another step and look somewhere else as well. You've had a lot of success wherever you've gone in terms of your stops in your career. So talk to me a little bit about what you're looking forward to here, the next part of it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going into another offseason as a free agent. Last 2 years, I was in the same boat, so it's kind of just trying to figure out what's going to come, what type of interest there is, and what's a good challenge for me. Because for me, obviously in this profession, there's no guarantees, so you don't need to be told any guarantees, because in a season a lot of things can happen, and if you have a lot of belief in yourself, you kind of create your own luck. So for me, it's about finding the right situation for this time in my career, because with goalkeepers starting to hit their late 20s, that tends to be their prime years. So it's just making sure I maximize that time wherever that may be.
All right, let's bring it back to why you guys are all three together here during the holidays, which is to host this winter goalkeeping camp here for St. Louis Scott Gallagher. It's not your guys' first year. I know you guys have been doing it for a few years now. And in terms of just the turnout for this year, what you guys were able to see during this camp, we'll just go around the table here, talking a little bit about what you guys saw and how things went here with the camp.
Yeah, no, I think with this being the second year specifically with Scott Gallagher, I think it's anytime you could get roughly 90 goalkeepers all under one roof, I think that says a lot about, not just Scott Gallagher, but just the St. Louis soccer scene in general. 90 goalkeepers under one roof, that's a lot. And so obviously the numbers wise, it's great, and I'm sure I can speak for these guys, but it's really good to give back. And I think when you've played as long as we have and you've worked with so many different people, you get a lot of different experiences, and to be able to give back and try and share those experiences with the kids that come out, I think that's a really enjoyable part about why we do this and what we do.
In terms of just, again, you're getting a variety of different age groups, different kids, at different parts of their careers trying to get started. So it's kind of cool to be at those early stages of development. And getting advice from you guys has got to be just, an amazing experience for them. But in terms of what you guys get out of it, seeing your impact on these types of kids, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me the biggest thing is it's very refreshing to see a younger player and a younger goalkeeper really take note of what you're trying to teach them, and to really try that and to work on that part of their game, whatever it may be. Just to know that you have an impact in someone's soccer career and arguably their life as a whole is pretty cool. It's a really cool feeling, and especially for all of us having played for Gallagher growing up, it's just special to know that these kids are in a place that we were at one point in our life, and if we can help them along the way with whatever we've learned throughout our paths and our careers, then it's very beneficial for us as people. It's always good to give back and tell the community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always a cool experience to give back to the young ones, because we've learned a lot of stuff as we've gone on in our career, and we're able to give information that we've learned maybe at later stages of our career to these young kids. And when they're young, they're like sponges, so you want to make sure you feed them the right information, and you can actually make them improve a lot quicker when you teach them at a younger age as opposed to being older. And I think it's kind of cool for us to be in this position, because when we were younger, there was no access to a camp that had pro goalkeepers at the time running it, where we could be sponges and listen to them. So I think St. Louis has always been a soccer-rich city, and we've over the years it's been a hotbed for producing professional goalkeepers, and I think for us it's nice to see the next generation, see what could be.
So again, you guys all have this connection of being from St. Louis Scott Gallagher, from being goalkeepers, different parts of your guys' careers. You've obviously moved on to be able to establish yourselves playing a professional game, but able to come back here kind of gives you guys that opportunity to reflect and see how the club has developed since your guys have left. So over those years, and especially recently with how things have changed a little bit with St. Louis FC, no longer being a thing as well. Talking a little bit about what you guys have seen from afar in terms of St. Louis Scott Gallagher and what they've been able to do.
I just think a lot of the things that the goalkeepers are doing nowadays is much more advanced than when it was during our day, which I think is obviously shows just the growth that this club has gone through in the past decade since we've moved on. And yeah, I just think the coaching at this club gets better and better, and I just think the quality of the training has only improved alongside that.
Yeah, they kind of piggyback off Connor. I think back then when we were young, it was more built on like the fitness and mentality portion of goalkeeping, which is massive. But you know, you gotta put these kids in situational, or you have to put them in like situations to make plays, which is very similar to the game. And you know, back then when we were, it was more about like having that mentality and that grit, which is massive as a goalkeeper because it's one of the most difficult positions in sports. So just seeing the evolution of how they train these kids now, and you know, most of these kids, I didn't look like that at that age, and they're better than I was probably 4 years ago right now, just in terms of different techniques. But I think it's cool to see that. So
I think one thing that comes to mind as well is obviously the hiring of Brad Davis, right? You know, what better guy, not only from St. Louis, but World Cups, national team, leagues, or years professional experience, you know. You want a guy like that at the helm, so I think making that hire was a really big indication on where the club wants to be and where it's going.
All right, another question I wanted to ask you guys, because again, I think that you guys can give good perspective, is that in terms of just your guys' career, you all have had experiences, you know, here in St. Louis, you know, being from the area and coming back and helping out things there, or of course, you know, playing. You've also had experiences with MLS as well throughout your guys' career. Of course, obviously, St. Louis will be getting an MLS team. Just have to wait one more season until they are part of a league. Wanted to ask your guys' your perspective, you know, from your experiences in MLS, from your experiences here in St. Louis, how big is it for them to be getting a team, and also in terms of just, you know, how they've been kind of going about things from an outside perspective, your guys' thoughts on them joining MLS here soon.
I think it's huge. I think each one of us can attest to how quickly soccer is growing in America. You know, we've each been in MLS and we've seen the level, we've seen how quickly it's grown, and I think both parties are gonna benefit from it. I think St. Louis as a city is going to benefit huge from it, and I think MLS as a league is going to benefit from such a strong city in St. Louis. So I think it's a win-win, and you know, we talked about the younger kids growing up. We didn't have that professional team to aspire to be, and to now, you know, these little kids that grow up, they're going to have that highest level of, oh, you know, that's where I want to play. And I think that's just going to be really, really special for the younger generation. And you have a very clear starting point, a very clear ending point. And to look up to those guys, I think it's going to be, like I said, not only good for the youth, but just the infrastructure of the city as well. I think it's going to, you know, hopefully revitalize downtown. It's going to bring a lot of business. It's going to do so many good things. So I think it's a win-win, and I know a lot of people are excited about it, including myself.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the youth level players in this city to have a professional team in market, to be able to just use them as an example of what could be, you know, and having something to look forward to and having something to work towards at a very young age is very important. I think it's for us, it was a bit different. We had to look elsewhere for that. We had to look either across the country or across seas to find, you know, an example of what this could eventually lead to if we play our cards right.
yeah, no, I think it's been a long time coming for St. Louis to finally get a team, and it's a soccer-rich culture. So I think the city definitely fits what MLS wants and what they need. And, you know, I just think you're finally giving access to St. Louis players to go into a system to hopefully play for the professional team. And a lot of people in St. Louis, I mean, whether it was SLU University back in the day, and even now after this past season, they were very good. It's just starting to see that St. Louis is soccer. And, you know, seeing an MLS team come in here is going to be massive for the city because you have fans that love soccer here. You know, in other cities, you're competing with other professional sports, whether it be football, baseball, and even here you are, but St. Louis tends to be pretty tight-knit to their sports teams, whether it's the Blues and the Cardinals. So, no, I think it's a massive opportunity, and a lot of kids are gonna have that chance that maybe we didn't have back then, where we had to go elsewhere for opportunities.
All right, guys. Last question before I let you guys go. Since this is the end of the year, 2021, I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit. Ask you guys for a New Year's resolution or just something that you're hoping for next year, especially from a soccer perspective, whether it's with your careers, whether it's, again, something else, elsewhere, maybe a team that you follow. Can be anything. But I want to ask for you, in terms of next year, what you're hoping for.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, it's same here. Stay healthy for the playoff game. If we make it,
Yeah, to kind of go off them and just don't get injured mid-season. So, I mean, and that's hard. I mean, I think a lot of us, we've learned in this that you can go into a season with this whole idea of how it's going to look like, but, 10-month season's a long time, and it's like a roller coaster ride. You just have to ride it, so.
All right. Well, health, obviously, and then you guys all make the playoffs and go as far as you go before you face each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I love it.
Well, it's cool again to see you guys come back here and provide such an influence for up and coming goalkeepers here in the St. Louis area. Another successful, I think you guys would say, winter camp here with St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Looking for more iterations of it in the future. So again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk with me, and thank you for giving back to St. Louis.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
My thanks to Connor, Tomas, and John for taking the time to speak with me after their clinic had wrapped up. I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to learn from a few of those guys sometime next year. That's going to do it for this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, good to be back in the home studio. Good to be talking with you all. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plan on having another episode out next week. Right now, trying to work on a pretty big time guest, but we'll see if that falls through or if I can get that done. Otherwise, going to be reaching out to a few people who haven't had the chance to speak with you in a while, catch up with them because they always bring great insight to the show. But again, look out for that new episode next week, and then I'll be back to Fayette. So again, thank you for sticking with me during this time in my career. Glad to be back and get this thing going here once again, at least for a couple of weeks. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Have a great new year. I'll see you in 2022.